Hello and welcome to CIO Leadership Live Australia. I'm Kathy O'Sullivan, Editorial Director for Foundry in Australia and New Zealand. And my guest today is Dan Kerr, who is the Chief Information Officer at Fremantle Ports. Welcome to the podcast, Dan. Appreciate you being with us today.
Thanks, Kathy. Excited to be here.
Great stuff, all the way from sunny Perth. So listen, tell us about how you got your start in technology and what have been some of the highlights of your career.
Yeah, so my start in technology is probably a little bit different to others. So I was at school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and did quite well in computers science at school and got a traineeship. So I started doing that for a number of years and then moved from there into Rio Tinto. So I spent nearly 10 years there in the IT team and really see that as what sort of set the base for where I am today. So some of my highlights have been working in large organisations like Rio and then moving into critical infrastructure organisations. So I spent some time with Public Transport Authority in WA and now at Fremantle Ports. Through all of those organisations, I feel like I've led some pretty big transformational pieces of work, and it's been really exciting to sort of be in the industry and spent all my career in the technology industry.
So you are CIO at Fremantle Ports and you've been there since 2020, I believe. So tell us a bit more about the organization, you know, its mission and its purpose and how you and your team support that.
So Fremantle Port is the main container port for WA. So a lot of the trade for Western Australia and Perth comes through our port. So our purpose is to facilitate trade for a more prosperous Western Australia. And then the aspiration of the organisation is to provide the safest and most reliable, efficient and sustainable supply chain capacity for importers and exporters. So we've got a number of goals that sit around that, which sit around the safety, sustainability, efficiency and reliability, capacity and engagement aspects of the organisation. So from a technology support point of view, we're really supporting the organisation with data and insights into the business, as well as those traditional IT services, operational technology, ensuring that corporate systems are all up and running and really working where we can really be efficient as an organisation and helping the business continue in that through that change.
So you are obviously one of our CIO 50 alumni, and I know that you've had a lot of achievements with your team in recent times, especially around lifting the IT maturity of Fremantle Port. So can you talk to us about what that involved?
Sure. So when I joined the organisation, the technology function was immature. So we sort of went about building some foundations, and by doing that, we sort of focused on really those foundational strategies, the holistic governance, measurable performance and transparent service and operations, really inward focus to IT, so we could set ourselves up to then be able to support the business through the transformation the business was looking through. We then moved into really around digital platforms. So we rolled out an ERP, consolidated 12 legacy apps into that product. We sort of worked through and had a number of strategic themes. So governance and assurance, strategy and planning, business engagement, data insights and operational technology. So those were really the pillars that we assigned everything to. We had this environment where we went and built disaster recovery capability. So the business didn't have any of that prior. So we've done numerous tests around working through that. And that was almost a starting point. And then, as I said, moved into those other aspects of removing legacy systems, ERPs, those sorts of things. And then a big focus on cyber maturity, cyber resilience, and reducing the risk for the organisation.
So a huge amount of work there, and I'm sure it was challenging at points. So can you talk us through, I guess, what were some of those big challenges when you were rolling out so many initiatives, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, look, I think that the challenges were all over the organisation. So I think having the right resources internally within IT was a challenge. So there was a number of roles that identified that were missing early that we were able to go and recruit and get some really good quality people into those roles. we had a really supportive executive and a really supportive board in what we were trying to do. So there was a change in the CEO in the organisation, sort of probably about 7 months after I started. So with the new CEO, we had a real drive in the organisation to really improve things, not just in technology but across the organisation. So we sort of focused on really ensuring that people had the change, linking it back to the business strategy, ensuring that we were able to sort of give people the reason why we were doing things. But certainly that support from the board and the executive and the CEO in particular was really important.
And you mentioned that, of course, cyber resilience was part of the focus for the initiatives that you rolled out. And of course, it's critical for every CIO, but even more so for an organization such as Fremantle Ports when it is critical infrastructure. So tell us about your approach to cybersecurity and how do you keep it front of mind for the organization?
Yeah, so cybersecurity is something I'm pretty passionate about and something we've sort of driven through that strategy. So I suppose coming back to the point of the IT strategy where we talked about those foundational strategies, one of those was a cybersecurity roadmap, and we had a number of initiatives on that. And again, we kind of looked at it from an internal IT and getting the right tools to also ensuring that we had aspects of the organisation understanding why, and we tried to make that personal. So we did things with the organisation like the training and awareness and introduced that. We introduced testing, but we also introduced talks, so lunch and learns. We tried to give people some insights into aspects of their personal security around their personal devices, their home version of things, so that we were able to link that back to a work point of view. So we felt if we could make people it'll give people the understanding of cyber safety or cyber security from a personal point of view, it would translate into the work environment. Over time and rolling out that training and that testing, we've actually seen our user base improve massively in the phishing test and the phishing links they were clicking on to where they are today. And then obviously as an organisation, we did some large infrastructure refreshes, we did some consolidation around tools that enabled us to have really a path forward from a consolidated view of cyber and a consolidated view of ensuring that we were running some of the latest technology rather than where we potentially were prior with aspects that weren't probably where they needed to be.
And so then, Dan, tell us about what role do partnerships then play in your IT strategy with, technology vendors? What does a good partner look like to you? And how do you decide who to partner with and on what?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I guess that we have a challenge in a way, and this is both a positive and a negative, but we are owned by the WA state government. So under that process, we have a number of procurement guidelines, and I think any organisation has procurement guidelines that we need to follow. So by doing that, we sort of open up the market when we go out. So getting the right scope is really important for us as we're picking a partner. But then having those conversations, strategic conversations with the key partners or the key organizations that we sort of work with is really critical, and then continuing that path going forward. So a good partner for me really is embedded into your organization. They understand where they fit or what you're trying to do and where they can actually help. And I think having those key partners really working closely with you enables you to do the certain aspects of what you're trying to deliver. And I think we've had some real key partners help us on the journey. We're largely an in-source team, but having key partners come in and deliver outcomes of that strategy has been really important to get to where we've got to.
So then what emerging technologies do you see having the biggest impact on your industry? I mean, what's your approach to things like AI, for example?
Yeah, look, I think AI is the big ticket item and it's the buzzword everywhere. I think from our organisation and being a port, ports and our port is over 100 years old, so there's some real traditional ways of doing things. So we're looking at where technology can actually enhance or help the port become more efficient, deliver what we need to deliver back to our strategic plan. I think the data and the data insight piece is critical for us. So how can we get more data? How can we get better data? How can we get real-time data? And that's something that we're sort of looking at as we sort of work through. We've even looking at, and this is a really basic example, but we're looking at how we can remove paper from our frontline workforce or from some of our assets and move it into a more of a digital aspect. So we're working with our harbour master on a couple of those initiatives at the moment. And then I think, yeah, as you start to get that data, how do you put the predictive maintenance or predictive AI across the top of it that can actually deliver the outcome the business is looking for?
And of course, the CIO is only as good as their team. So talk to us about, your approach to getting the best out of your team. How do you keep them engaged and feel like they're really growing in their roles?
Yeah, so engagement's actually one of our corporate initiatives and something that we take we really look at as an organisation. So my approach to engagement with my team is for them to really understand where they fit into the broader organisation, what their roles mean to running our port and running the operations that we run. We're looking to free them up from a training and development point of view. We look to give them the challenges that they need or want or looking for. And I think as we sort of start to give people that real understanding, the time and the capacity to take on some of that aspects of what they want to do, it just helps with that engagement. And as a leader, one of the conversations I typically have is, well, what do you need for your current role? What do you want to do in the future? And how do we start to look at developing that? And what do you want to know and understand more around the organisation? So the harbour master took the IT team on a tour of the harbour on one of our vessels, and some of the people within IT hadn't actually been out on the harbour and seen that. So just to give that real this is what we do and this is what it means, and have the harbour master speak to the team around what was happening was really powerful to grow their engagement and their real link back into the business.
Yeah, great for them to see, I guess, the stakeholders at the end of it as well. So what skills do you think will be in demand in the next 5 years?
I think it's the AI skill set that we talk about. I think cyber is another one that you continue to sort of look at, and then I think the data and the sort of the teams that come together across the business. So how do you bring technology back in with the business and starting to really look at the technology future of how that can help solve some of those business problems and looking at potentially product teams and those sorts of things.
And also looking ahead into the future with your crystal ball, Dan, what are the challenges that you think will face Australian CIOs in the coming years?
I've probably linked to that. I think the resource attraction, development, retention, and how do you build that, because you can't always just go and buy it. And if you're working with your partners to work in some of those aspects, you really need to be able to sort of work in unison to be able to work through what that looks like. And I think it's just going to be around that real critical thinking or business analyst skill set around being able to convert a business problem back into a technical solution and getting the right group to work through those aspects.
So you and the team have achieved an awful lot in the last few years. So what are the next few months ahead looking like? We only have a few months left in 2024. What's next in the pipeline for you and the team?
So we've just developed our next strategic roadmap. So again, we're looking to mature probably the foundations that we set previously. So a big focus around data insights, data management. We've got a fairly significant cyber program and continuing to work through and engage with the business initiatives that we've sort of set out. We've got a couple of internal port management systems that require upgrading shortly. So we'll be working on the planning process for that.
Well, we wish you all the best with it, and hopefully next time I see you, it'll be in beautiful Western Australia. Dan Kerr, CIO at Fremantle Ports, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problems. Thanks, Kathy.